Thank you, Dr. Andrew, Ray, for the invitation to be here today with you. It's great to be visiting Kentucky State University. Thank you for the hospitality. And also I'd like to acknowledge Ziegler Brothers for their sponsorship for me to be here. What I'd like to do today is to give you a very global and quick and dirty perspective of the global farm shrimp industry. And I hope this can serve as a reference or a framework for the presentations and discussions that will follow mine. I think it's important to take first the 30,000 feet view, and then we can dig in and drill into more specialized topics, which will probably be the remainder of the event. So let's take a quick look at the industry on a global scale. Shrimp is farmed today in at least 50, maybe 60 countries around the world. The industry is at least 40 years old as an industry. The pond area has been recently estimated by Boyd and McNevin at over 2 million hectares around the world. The industry is basically located in Asia and Latin America. And if we look at production, I'm going to show you the numbers that we generate at the Global Aquaculture Alliance, which is a trade organization that I collaborate with as a contractor for many years. So, does this have a pointer? Yeah, okay, so we can see that in 2017, global production was about 4.3 million metric tons, which is about 5% more than the previous year. As I said, the industry is located basically in Asia and the Americas. You can see the main producer countries here. China is by far the biggest producer. Asia is responsible for about 3.4 million metric tons, or about 80% of the total. And two species are grown: Vaname, the Pacific white shrimp, and Peneus monodon, or the black tiger shrimp. The Americas, the main producers are Ecuador, Mexico, and Brazil. Ecuador, Mexico, and Brazil. Most of Central America has significant industries producing between 15 and 30,000 metric tons. Venezuela has a significant industry, so does Peru. And basically the region grows 100% Vaname, Pacific white shrimp, about 756,000 metric tons, or about 18% of the world's total. Hard to estimate the production in the U.S. I'm guesstimating about 1,500 to 1,700 metric tons, or between 3.3 and 3.7 million pounds. We can argue about this. There's outdoor farms in Texas, in Alabama, in Florida. I'm not sure about Arizona, maybe others. And of course, there's an incipient indoor production, mostly small scale, in several states, mostly around the Midwest. And then if we look at the rest of the world, we have countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran and Madagascar, Australia, etc. They grow more than the Vaname and monodon that are grown in the rest of the world. They also have the Indian white shrimp, banana shrimp, and Pacific blue shrimp, but they only produce maybe 2% of the total. If we look at value, the farm shrimp industry is extremely valuable. Dr. Albert Taken a couple years ago estimated the value of farm shrimp at $23.6 billion, second only to the carps. If we look at Vaname, the species we grow, is the main aquatic species in terms of value, and it was estimated back then at about $18.5 billion. Vaname is, of course, the most important aquaculture species, And practically all the production comes from aquaculture, probably about 78% today. And it's also very important, if we look at the total shrimp produced globally, both from fisheries and from aquaculture, Vaname contributes about 45%. And that includes fisheries. And Vaname is not a fish species, it's basically all from aquaculture. So the industry is essentially based on one species with a few selected improved lines. And there's a lot of additional economic activity around farming, support industries like aquafeed and equipment and several others that add value. There's at least 2.5 million jobs directly related to shrimp farming and many more indirectly. Production technology around the world is basically still extensive to semi-intensive. The history of the industry, regrettably, is one of major diseases hitting the industry every 4 to 7 years. And this, of course, is not good because it disrupts supply chains and makes investors really, it's not good for investment. Let's leave it at that. There are relatively few available proactive measures to deal with diseases. We can breed resistance, we can implement some biosecurity, and perhaps in the near future we'll see something similar to what we call vaccines. There's a lot of potential for genetic gains. These animals have very short life cycles, and there's a lot of work that has been done to make them grow faster, to be more resistant. This work continues, and we're going to see better and better shrimp coming down the pipe. Our knowledge about nutrition is adequate, but I think there's a lot of room for further improvement, and I think the industry can expand significantly if we can properly address things like the market and investment. So if we keep comparing Asia and the Americas, Asia has transitioned to growing smaller shrimp, basically because of disease issues. They're harvesting earlier so they can make a little bit more money and minimize their losses. And if we look at the Americas, the trend has been one of slightly increasing size categories. And we have seen a definite shift in average sizes. If we look at the bell-shaped distributions between the year 2010 and 2016, there's been a definite shift towards smaller sizes. And this is basically earlier harvests because of diseases. If we look at product forms, Asia basically produces very significant volumes of value-added product. And if we look at the Americas, we basically produced pretty much a green shrimp with very little value added. What can we say about the industry in the last couple of decades? Well, first of all, we've increased production by 4 times. If you look at production in '95, it was barely 1 million metric tons. Today, we're probably well over 4 million metric tons. Look at the growth of the industry in Southeast Asia, in China, in the Americas, and also India in here. If we look at the 2 main species, Vaname, Pacific White, and Monodon, Black Tiger, we can see that in the early years, Monodon dominated. Oops, trigger happy here. So we can see that Monodon dominated in the early years, okay? But something happened around the year 2000, 2001, and basically what happened is that Vaname was domesticated and was introduced into Asia. They did extremely well in the small, intensive monodon ponds, and as you can see, the rest is history. You can see how Vaname production really took off. And this is just another view of production in the last 20 years or so. We have seen periods of pretty good growth. We can see the effects of various diseases. This one is EMS or aphids. and this one is EHP and white spot, and we can see very significant changes in annual growth rates, which of course it affects prices and supply, and also again makes potential investors nervous about our industry. So moving along, some of the, if we look at the producers by regions, Southeast Asia is by far the biggest producer. China, and we can argue a little bit about the total numbers. China is probably producing around 1 million metric tons. There are some issues with China because China is importing a lot of shrimp from many countries. Anyway, so China is still the biggest producer in the world. India, the Americas, and the Middle East follow. If we look at the main countries in Asia, as I said, China, followed by Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, and India. Thailand has shown us what efficiency means. In 2013, Thailand suffered tremendous losses to EMS or APINs, and they have come back very strongly, very efficiently. Thailand is producing today Thailand produces today in 10,000 hectares what they were producing in 80,000 hectares about 15 or 20 years ago. Different species, Baname versus Monodon too. Vietnam has learned a lot from Thailand. They're becoming much more efficient. India is also growing very fast. Both Vietnam and India are on a path to produce 1 million metric tons or better by the year 2025. They're both building new ponds very, very fast, in particular India. And in the Americas, Ecuador is the main producer, around 450,000 metric tons, followed by Mexico, which had its issues with EMS here, and Brazil, which has had issues with diseases like white spot and IMNV. So if we look at the industry on a global scale or from a global perspective, we can say that these are the main challenges. Diseases, of course, cause tremendous economic losses. You can see some of the estimates on this column. These are viral diseases, and these are not. These, of course, we learn to manage with biosecurity and other measures. But these two are totally different in terms of management and prevention. EMS is caused by a bacterium, and EHP is caused by a microsporidium or it's like a fungus, and they're very difficult to manage. Especially EHP is very difficult to eradicate once we introduce it. So we have to be extremely careful in our region not to bring in animals that may be possible carriers of some of these new diseases. And speaking of that, SHIV is the latest. I'm sure Dr. Arun Dar from the University of Arizona will entertain us with some of these new and exciting diseases, so I won't say much more about it other than diseases are the main challenge we have. And in the U.S. we have been very fortunate so far that the effect or the impact of diseases has been relatively minor, and let's keep it that way, please. So feeds is another challenge from the point of view of ingredients. If we look at this FAO Sofia report of a couple of years ago, we can see that the amount of production from fed species is growing. And this, of course, means that we're going to need a lot more ingredients. And we all know what's going on with arable land and freshwater around the world. And remember that we are competing for these ingredients with other meat-producing industries. So the supply of ingredients for aquafeeds may become an issue in the near future. Let's take a quick look at the U.S. seafood industry and shrimp. And there's a few things I'd like to highlight here. This is a list of the species and the amounts we consumed back in '87, and the same thing for 2016. And you can see the difference in pounds between the 2 years, and the percent change, and the total. So a couple of things that I want to highlight. Of the top 10 species in '87, scallops and flatfish are not on the top 10 anymore. In '87, only one of the top 10 species, catfish, was cultured. I can't see the colors too well, but I remember it. In 2016, 4 of the 10 are either mostly or exclusively from aquaculture activities. We love shrimp in the U.S. Our total consumption of about 15 pounds, out of that, 28% is shrimp. And basically, we eat as much shrimp as salmon and canned tuna combined. The other thing that's interesting is look at the jump in consumption of shrimp. We went from 2.29 pounds in '87 to 4.1 pounds. And if we multiply that by the number of people in the country, that gives us a number like 1.3 billion pounds, which I think is a pretty big pie. And I think there's room for things like indoor culture, but I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. So we love shrimp. We love shrimp, we eat a lot of it, but we import most of it. We import more than 90% of the shrimp we eat. And this graph shows how our imports have increased. A couple of other things, if we look at our trade deficit, last year it was $15.7 billion, and shrimp was responsible for about 41% of that. Our shrimp imports. The opportunity is that we can farm shrimp in the U.S., of course. So I'm going to run quickly through some of these, and you can read them. But basically, like Drew mentioned before, we can grow shrimp year-round in locations close to major consumption centers under relatively controlled conditions and biosecurity. There's a number of niche and commodity markets we can send the shrimp to, including fresh, never frozen. And remember, we have the most advanced technological base on the best aquafeed technology in the world. And there's many ways to grow shrimp indoors, and I won't get into that, but let me just put these on and make some comments. In a market of over 1.3 billion pounds per year, there's a lot of room to gain market share. There's also the possibility to increase consumption. If we could increase consumption by half a pound, that would represent an additional demand of, you can figure that out, it's hundreds of thousands of pounds. I use the example of Florida, my home state, where we have a population of just over 20 million people. But we have a floating or visiting population of over 100 million people. And everybody loves shrimp. You know, local markets are certainly a possibility. And most of all, I like to emphasize this product of the U.S. without illegal anything and in its production, and without anything in its processing added to increase shrimp weight. So if everybody else is doing it, why not shrimp? Why can't we grow shrimp indoors? Okay? So let's look at some challenges and perspectives. Okay? What are challenges from my view? And I have over 35 years of experience as a researcher, as an academic, but mostly as a producer. And my experience comes at a cost. You got to kill shrimp to learn how to grow shrimp. And I think these are the important things. Proper due diligence is critical. Sufficient financing and proper scale of the project. Okay? Consistent and reliable supply of quality seed stock. I can say this 10 times. It's that important. Proper management of your operation, including training and technical support. Markets, you got to pick the market, okay? And I picked these numbers
out of a hat. But are you going to go after a niche market? Are you going to do commodity? Are you going to do both? If you remember, if you're doing commodity market, you are competing with the rest of the world. And proper marketing plan. Know before you invest one penny, who are you going to sell to? I cannot emphasize that enough. So in perspectives, I think we need to learn from past mistakes. I think somebody should take the initiative and do a post-mortem of why several projects in the U.S. have failed in the last 20 or 30 years. We need to have realistic expectations. I review proposals regularly, and I can tell you that the expectations are not realistic. And I lost the slides, no. Okay, there's a significant learning cost in growing shrimp indoors. Those of you that have done it, I'm sure will support that. Oops. Expertise is available, use it. Knowledge is available, learn. Did I mention seed stock? We need more hatcheries. I don't think we have enough supply in the country. Plus, there are fast-growing genetically improved lines out there. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent in other countries to improve shrimp. These animals are available, okay? Let's get them. Feeds, we have excellent feeds. They can be improved and they're going to be improved. Use your manufacturers for support. They know a lot. The market is established. Well, how do we grow it? Well, know the market. Can we brand? Can we teach U.S. consumers to accept whole shrimp? The rest of the world does it. How do we get into fast food markets? Very important. We have a great story to tell. Okay, what do you answer? What do you say when somebody tells you shrimp is bad for you? I say, no, shrimp's good for you. For most people can eat shrimp, and it's good for them and for us. Embrace technology, innovation, and communication. There's a lot of things coming our way, including automation, cloud-based management systems, and be informed. There's a lot going on, and you need to be informed. We have a tremendous opportunity because we hardly eat any seafood, okay, about 15 pounds. Look at how much more poultry and meat we eat. There's a tremendous opportunity to increase consumption. Shrimp is good for most people as part of a well-balanced diet. So in conclusion, we've increased global production 4 times in the last 2 decades. We need more aquaculture production. We need to live with diseases. Diseases are part of the industry. They're not going away. There's a lot of new technologies that we can benefit from, and the industry can grow in many areas. Global markets. Okay, one important point, we need to tell our story better, and we need to earn the trust of the new generations, of the millennials, the Generation X's, and whatever else, because you know what? In a couple of years, they're going to control the world, and they have a different set of values and expectations, and we need to be able to fulfill those. And I'm saying that the U.S. can develop a significant indoor shrimp farming industry. The pie is big enough, 1.3 billion pounds, and it can be grown, it can be expanded. And the way forward, everybody, is by being adaptive, and we need to be able to change and innovate continuously, okay? So thank you very much. I hope you all have a great 2 days here, and I look forward to discussing your perspectives and ideas. Thank you very much.